Welcome to one of the very first sessions of TPS Fest 2025. Very excited to be one of the first sessions. Also, it's fun to kind of run through everything. The new beginning slides looked great, so thank you to everybody who put those together. And thank you so much to the planning committee for all of your work in getting the conference program put together. It is spectacular. I'm looking forward to attending so many sessions. I wish I could attend all of them at the same time. But over the next 3 weeks, I would encourage you all to attend and participate as much as you can. So, my name is Joe Luke. I'm the Outreach and Reference Archivist at Union College in Schenectady, New York. I'm also the now lead editor of Notes from the Field, which is the TPS Collective's peer-reviewed blog. If you're interested in um, writing, reviewing, reading, anything like that, reach out. That's not what this session is about, but please do let me know if you're interested in learning more. I'm here with Jenna Patera, instruction librarian, and Lindsay Bush, reference and instruction librarian, both from Schaffer Library at Union College in Schenectady, and we're here today to present from escape rooms to deep dives, primary source engagement across research instruction. We're going to talk a bit about how we collaborate across library divisions. So I'm here representing our Special Collections and Archives division. Lindsay and Jenna are here representing our Research and Engagement division. I do primary source instruction with primary sources in Special Collections and Archives, and Lindsay and Jenna primarily handle our general research instruction. I will try not to refer it to downstairs instruction just because their offices are down on the first and second floors, and I'm on the third floor, but I may slip and do that at some point over the hour. We're going to talk a little bit about number one, our escape room program. Lindsay will talk about that first. I'll contribute a little bit then. Then Jenna's going to talk about our redesign of our library learning lab space and also our curriculum development as far as pairing research skills, topic development, and other instruction learning outcomes with primary source literacy learning outcomes that are really the fodder of TPS Collective. So, Lindsay, Jenna, do you have anything to add before I turn it over to Lindsay to talk about the escape room? After we present, we should have plenty of time for discussion. We've got some questions for the group. We're hoping to hear back from all of y'all, but also we do have some questions that we'll talk about on our own. So if you have any questions for us, save them for that end session, and we'll have a conversation about what it means to collaborate on instruction. So I will pass it off to Lindsay.
Awesome. All right. So, as Joe mentioned, in the fall of 2022, we started running sort of escape rooms meet scavenger hunts. They have a little bit of each in them. And the general outcome of those was to orient specifically our first year students to the physical spaces in the library, as well as some of our services. And in the original room, we didn't have students visit special collections for a couple of reasons. So one is that our first escape room was designed prior to Joe starting at Union. And so we were lacking staff in that department with instructional experience. And we had also seen a decrease in student skills as students were coming into Union. And that sort of further supported this preconceived notion or philosophy that we had that using primary sources and specifically special collection materials in research wasn't a first year goal. And so in order for us to be successful in working together, we had to change that philosophy. And so Joe helped us do that. And so we've realized still that some of our students come to Union having never written a research paper. And Jenna and I have done a survey with the incoming first year students, and we actually know that there's a significant amount of them who have not written a research paper. And maybe that means that they're not ready to delve into primary source research and special collections. But what we did ultimately find is that the first year is absolutely the time to let them know that special collections exist and to plant the seeds of curiosity for what is in those collections. And that changing that philosophy allowed us to better meet the students with whatever research background they were bringing with them to Union. And some students, after going to special collections in the escape room, said, that's interesting, and I want to go back there. And they sort of put it in their tool chest for later on during their career at Union. And some students want to delve right into the collection, and Joe would see them later that term. And so it was really helpful to meet students where they were. All right, Joel, if you want to, yes. So far we've designed three different escape rooms. The first one was about a ghost story on campus. It's called The Lady in White, and it didn't have a clear connection to special collections. And we've gone back and retrofitted this room to include special collections. But the problem is it required us to make up a document, a fictional document, a diary that doesn't actually exist. And I will say that's not really ideal. Um, and I didn't realize that until we created our next escape room, which was the Audubon heist. And so that one is based around a true story at Union where our Audubon Birds of America prints were stolen. Um, we did get them back, but it reads or it feels like a true crime show. And the actual records of that, the photographs of the heist are held in special collections. And so we could tie that to real sources. And what you're seeing here on your screen is an actual picture of the crime scene, blood and all. Um, and so the students could actually see how the archives holds and provides access to actual records. And that's really important. And then the last one is the Wireless Wizard, and it's about our college radio station. Oh, thank you, Jenna. It's about our college radio station, and we designed that room after the records for the college radio station were digitized. And so it allowed us to sort of low-key publicize a new collection that we had, which also worked out really well. So if anyone wants me to talk more in depth about how to create escape rooms, the pitfalls of escape rooms, putting special collections with them, I can do that during the Q&A section. But yeah, we can go back to measuring our success. So we do a lot of measuring our success at Union. And how we do this with escape rooms is we have students fill out exit tickets. And so again, our outcome was just to let students know special collections exist, where it's located, what types of materials are held there. And when we looked at the exit tickets, 45% of students reported that they accomplished that outcome. So that to me is a huge success. And then these other quotes. So one student is wondering about what other manuscripts are in special collections, which I think speaks to the fact that we've planted seeds of curiosity. And I'm actually pretty sure this student came back that same term. I think Joe saw them. The middle one was just special collections exists, which is that part of that 45%. And then the last one is interesting because it speaks to the idea that Joe is starting to promote that special collections is also about collecting current student material. And so it's promoting this idea that the archives just isn't just about collections from 100 years, ago, but also about preserving current history. And the fact that a student walked away knowing that, I think is also a great success. Okay.
All right. So, what does this mean for us in special collections? So, upfront, joining the escape room program meant that we would have 12 to 15, probably more even this next year, additional classes of students coming to special collections over the course of a 10-week term. All first years, popping in groups. So one of the first things that we wanted to try to sort out was how much of a lift is this going to be for us? How on earth are we going to handle this? Um, I say striking the balance at the beginning because we, at the very beginning of the escape room program, when we first started with the Autobahns, basically had the clue that we needed to give to students. I would primarily be there as the primary instructor in special collections and archives, give students a little overview of who we are, and send them on their way with the clue that would get them to the next step in the escape room. Um, However, we quickly realized that if I, as the instructor, wasn't there, relying on other staff and students who had not been fully trained necessarily was not going to be the best thing. So I have "What Was That Room" on the third floor as the title of this slide. I also have it printed out in a little placard that sits on my desk and probably will in perpetuity for the rest of my career, because that was some of the student feedback from that escape room that I was not at. So students came up to special collections, got their clue, and took off in the capable hands of one of our processing archivists and probably an undergrad. Um, And the feedback was, what on earth was that room that I went in, without learning that it was special collections, even though it does say special collections over the door, and I'm sure they got the intro spiel. Um, but that basically led us to develop a script. So we sat down in special collections and considered what we could communicate to students over perhaps a 2.5 or 3 minute visit in the reading room. It's kind of like a turbo one shot, if you will. And we came up with some of the things that Lindsay has already talked about. So we wanted them to know who we are, what we have, how to access materials, and then that we are collecting current student materials. Those were basically our outcomes. So we developed a script, which I am not pretending that you're going to be able to read this page that I have screenshotted and put up here. I just put it here as a visual in case you wanted to see what a document looks like, I guess, for some reason. Um, but anybody who's in special collections follows the script. We have it in our undergrad reference desk manual. All of our librarians, all three of us, I guess I shouldn't say all of us, are very familiar with the script. We all take a look at it at the beginning of the term, so everyone's ready just in case there's an escape room and one or two or three of us aren't around. Um, but we really wanted to strike the balance. The first term that we did this, I was very ambitious. I wanted to have teaser materials out on the tables for students who come up to try to catch their interest in something else. You come up for the Audubon escape rooms, but wow, look, there's a medieval manuscript on the other table. Like we can catch their interest and help bring them back that way. However, it did start to sort of gum up the system. Students wanted to hang out with the medieval documents instead of continuing on their way through the escape room. So we did have to cut back on that. Also, it's a lot of work to have teasers out every morning, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday for escape rooms over the course of a 10-week term. We still do some of that, but we try not to hold them up. We need to get them in the door, learn what they need to learn, and then on their way. The time commitment I have here, I already discussed this a little bit, but it is a significant lift. Again, there's only three of us in our department to have. I mean, how big are the classes, Lindsay? 20 students, 25 students sometimes for the first year inquiry classes. Um, Monday, Wednesday, Friday for half the term is quite a lot, but it's most certainly worth it. So Lindsay has reported on a strong basis, familiarity as a learning outcome. The one thing that we really have noted is that now that we're in the third year of doing escape rooms and being in the escape room program, is that when we get upperclassmen who come in, who were in the escape room program as freshmen, they already know who we are and they already know what we do. And when they come up for either a research appointment or for class instruction for an upper level class, they are ready to hit the ground running. So I open every class session with a who's been here before, and then they raise their hands. I went to a TPS collective session either last year or the year before about how people ask students to raise their hands, and then you pick on those students and ask them to explain to their peers who we are and what we do. That's become very easy. So Union's a very small school. We're capturing a lot of the freshmen in the escape room. Obviously, we're letting them go. We're not actually capturing them. That's the whole point. But we're capturing a lot of the freshman class. And by the time they're seniors, they are comfortable. They're not scared when they come in. Everybody knows the look when freshmen don't know if they're allowed to be, or students don't know if they're allowed to be in the reading room. We don't have evidence or data on this, but anecdotally, classes have shown that upper class students come in. They know who we are. Again, they've seen our faces. They know what archives are, and they know what to expect when they come in the door. And I'll turn it over to Jenna to talk about the deep dive side of the presentation.
Dives. I'm going to make some admissions here. Don't come at me, archivists. I did not often include archive special collections or primary source instruction in my standard one shot at any other institution. So the success of the first year collaboration really encouraged us to pursue these partnerships. Joe and I found that, now we had an audience who was excited and interested in learning more about primary sources. And a lot of our information literacy goals were the same. So it was not, it was only a benefit to partner for these 200 to 400 level courses. And oftentimes, I would get a request, but it would ask me to do things that Joe is especially good at, like analyzing either digital or physical primary sources. And I'd say, can you just do this with me? Let's do it together. Or Joe would get a request, but they're also writing a research paper and need to search databases, and he would bring me in. And it really created a symbiosis in our instruction where students were getting both our what I'm going to call standard instruction, where we're teaching them databases exist. This is what an article is. This is how you find an article and cite it. But also, that article is in a physical paper somewhere. And that article is referring to or analyzing potentially a primary source, or a primary experience or an item. You guys don't need me to go in. You know what the deal is. But one of the barriers that we kept running into was our space. I, as you heard, am a downstairs person. I am on the second floor, as is our learning lab. And most of our special collections resources are upstairs behind a locked door. And it's pretty intimidating to students to go, even if they found out what that room is on the third floor, to take the initiative to go behind that locked door. So we thought, how can we bring the resources of special collections to them together in the learning lab? So next slide, please. Our learning lab was not awesome for this when we started doing this collaboration. As you can see, what we had were the thing on the left, a chair that was attached to a desk that was both like really not accessible if, let's say, you had mobility issues or you were a person who was more than, I don't know, 200 pounds, like not cool. And the desk was attached, so we had no place to really lay out materials. There was no place for people to put their coffee mug or their backpack. And so it just didn't feel like a place where we could safely co-present both special class. We couldn't have things out, work with the students on kind of the skills that they needed for information literacy instruction, and then move on to primary source instruction or vice versa. And then Joe took a field trip and found out that the instruction room at Smith College had cubbies, and it was like a light bulb. And we were like, the students can come and put things in cubbies. If only we had cubbies, we could do this in the learning lab. And together as an instruction, basically all of the teaching librarians got together and said, how can we make this space interactive and usable and less cumbersome? And so, as you can see in the final photo, we created a space that not only had cubbies, which was really the only addition we made to, quote, make it special collections ready. Everything else that we did is something that I super wanted to. But also we have students with movable and kind of flip up and down tables and movable chairs so that we can either say, okay, quick, get into groups, which works for the escape room. Or Joe figured out this bubble configuration that was really innovative, and I'm excited about it, for looking at special collections materials where we can have them engaging with the physical material. Here you see a class in the room actually looking at the materials, and we still have the room kind of, you don't see the screens on the wall here, but we've got screens on the wall for presentation. It works for both of us, and it's adjustable for whatever type of session we are looking to do. It was not a super expensive renovation. I can look back and get the numbers, but it ended up taking maybe 6 months and a little bit of prodding and pleading, but we really were able to engage the space in a completely new way, and it changed the tenor of our teaching together. So next slide, please. So in combining the digital and physical space, we were also able to discuss digital and physical sources in a single time frame. So Joe can do a primary source analysis that he's going to talk a little bit about, and I can say, okay, that's the primary source. Here's what it looks like online. What do you lose here? What do you gain here? How did I find it? How do you go home and find it again? And I will admit, I learned a lot about engaging with primary sources. It's not my specialization, and it ended up kind of enhancing the way that I talk about it, even when Joe or one of my colleagues from special collections is not in the room. Suddenly we didn't have to split the room up on the fly. We always were having to say, okay, you 12 stay with Jenna, you 12 go upstairs, then switch. And inevitably, 17 of them stayed with me. I'm not doing the math on the fly, but 9 of them went upstairs, and we didn't have even numbers. One of our sessions went much better than the other because either the second one was good or whatever, we forgot things. We could give everybody kind of the same experience. Together, we would be getting these requests to use this room and do these sessions. And it ended up with Joe and I having some really wonderful kind of curriculum development. I remember when you looked at me and you said, Jenna, I've cracked it. And I was like, oh, okay, what are we doing? And it's like, okay, we actually have to do digital first, and here's why. And just having the space created a lot of inspiration and a lot of collaborative engagement in a way that we hadn't had the opportunity before, and I hadn't done at previous institutions. We just didn't need as many logistics. Trying to get 12 people in an elevator or up very hard to find stairs was chaotic. And so having that single space just allowed us to teach without thinking about how the space of our teaching was hindering us. Next slide may or may not be me. Oh, no, it's you. Okay.
All right, we
Oh,
move forward.
that's it.
Okay.
Please, any questions you have, I'm happy to share where we got those tables, why we decided on half octagons or whatever. There's a lot that went into it, and we documented all of our work.
Oh, hold on. All right. So there are a few union-specific issues that we were able to sort of take on with this renovated room and this model. One of them is being that we have a 10-week term. Um, you take a breath and the 10-week term is over, and faculty know it. Um, a lot of times you would get either instruction of special collections or instruction in research, and some people would do both. But if you have 20 course meetings total, taking 2 of them to come to 2 different parts of the library is a tough sell for faculty. So being able to address classes with both types of instruction has been monumental for reaching students, reaching faculty, and growing both of our programs. And the other side is, and this is probably the case for a lot of institutions, that we are a boutique collection. We really focus on Union College history. Union's been around since 1795, so we have tons of stuff, and we have a lot of stuff that's, tangentially Union related that we love to teach with. We have like our medical history stuff um, and collections from people who, graduated from Union and then went on to do X, Y, and Z things. But for the courses that are available here, like in our history department, there's only so many courses that are Union history. In fact, there's one Union history class that's been taught one time over the last 3 or 4 years. And we want to be able to reach students in the medieval history classes and in the South American history classes and the different types of survey and intensive research classes that are offered here. And this session has really, using the space and teaching this collaborative session model has really allowed us to connect students with primary sources that are digitized and online, in a way that I believe mirrors the physical primary source experience. I'll talk a little bit about that, and I understand there's another session going on right now about teaching with digitized and digital primary sources, so we won't go too far down that rabbit hole. Um, but I wanted to bring an example of a session that we've developed uh, to discuss here as, an
It's
example
so good. I love
of what
this
we do.
session. It's
And
so
yeah, so I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with document analysis. If you're not, I would encourage you to go to the TPS Collective website, go to the Teaching Tools Library, and go to the document analysis section. There's tons of worksheets and tons of lesson plans that are there. I actually based mine off of one. Um, but basically, I build my sessions around document analysis. So students choose a primary source, they take a look at it, and we ask them all of these questions to help expand their understanding. What is this thing? When was it made? If you don't know when, um, how can you find out? How to find it on a finding aid, everything like that. And then by the end, they have a new critical lens with which to look at both primary sources, but also like, their lives, the internet, understand how context matters and better understand how to be information literate. One session that Jenna and I developed was pairing document analysis of a physical primary source that was right in front of them, that was very obviously an old thing, with a digitized or born digital primary source that they were able to find following some database instruction. My favorite item to bring is this photo of Charles Guiteau's brain. Students respond well to it. Everybody knows Charles Guiteau is the one who shot President Garfield, and was later executed. But we have a photo of his brain in one of our medical history texts because one of the doctors that attended to President Garfield was a Union alum. So I just mentioned like the tangential medical history stuff. And so we pull out this, it's a cabinet card with the photo of the brain on it. And we say, "What am I holding?" And the students say, "A brain." And we say, "No, no, a photo of a brain." And the light bulbs start to go off. We go through all the document analysis questions, and then we challenge them to do the same thing with a digital primary source. And having seen the physical one, and having it fresh in their mind, even handled it and flipped it over and looked at the back, when you tell them to look for that context, uh, I found that they do so. They look at the sidebar and they look at all the metadata that's there. And if they can't find it, they know to ask for help in finding all of that information. We have them do a worksheet analyzing that digitized primary source, and really it helps them differentiate between looking at a website and looking at the digital primary source. So that sort of thing is what we've been able to sort of port into our collaborative lesson plans in a way that I think has really strengthened our instruction program. It's helped us reach faculty members and students in the 10-week term, and it's also helped us maximize our, number one, like paid subscriptions to databases. Like students are using all sorts of databases to find all sorts of really interesting primary sources, and they're finding relevant material to their projects. So we're not having to shoehorn, well, this was going on at Union in the 1890s, so it's relevant to my paper on, I don't know, like westward expansion in the 1890s. You don't have to force Union history into everything. You can really let students get creative and follow research leads with that primary source and information literacy mindset, and to create good projects at the end. So that's all that we had as far as the presentation went.